Well, welcome to TRF Tuesday. This is the Trauma Research Foundation's weekly mini workshop series from Bright Voices in Therapeutic Embodiment. If you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe. It lets YouTube know that you find this content valuable, and then they'll spread the word by showing it to more people. We'll take questions from the audience at the end of the session, so please just drop them in the chat. And we're so happy to have you here today at MindBodySpeak. The session is Putting It All Together. I'm really happy to introduce to you our presenter. As a performance artist, Marshall Davis Jones thought having the right words was enough. But after exploring movement practices and their connection to sound, he discovered you could improve your life if you improve your voice. Mind, Body, Speak is his unique approach beyond words to address the power of the voice. He's trained voices from law enforcement to luxury insurance agencies. He's spoken on TEDx stages. In this series, he offers his voice to help you find the way back to yours. Marshall, thanks so much for being here. Take it away.
All right, now, thank you for having me. And oh, wow, you do that thing where you run a tech rehearsal and then the application that you ran the tech rehearsal for shuts off. So let's have some fun getting on the saddle, everybody. Here we go. Boom, and then boom, and then play. All right. Everybody that's been here, and for some of our newcomers here, 10 seconds on the clock. Go ahead and take a nice yawn stretch. 10 seconds. Just do what the animals do. If you got a cat or a dog or a pet ferret, whatever you got. Orangutan, you'd be surprised. All right, now we're going to go ahead and do some square breathing. Remember, synchronize the hands with the breath. 3, 2, 1. Inhale, opening the fingers gently. Hold the breath, keeping the fingers open, gentle with the hands. Closing the fingers. And then keeping the fingers closed. One more time. Inhale, opening the hands slowly. Keeping the fingers open. One more time. We're going to close the fingers gently. Keeping the fingers closed, air out of the body. I'm going to put my hands down, but inhale, opening the fingers. Hold the breath. Exhale, slowly close the fingers, gently hold the breath. 3, 2, 1, and breathe normally. Pardon me while I open up this chat. I want to be able to see what people are saying so that we can communicate effectively and efficiently. So let me see, how do you want to move in this thing? All right, bam, boom, boom. Put that over here. All of these little things, sometimes everything isn't cooperating with you, and that's okay. Such is life. All right, so what we're going to do is today we're going to put everything together. And we're going to do a very fast recap of what we experienced for the past 3 weeks. So the very first thing we talked about was the yawn stretch and the purpose of that. And that is so that we can join the rest of the animal kingdom in its very ancient form of resetting itself. All the animals do this, the amphibians, the reptiles, the birds, bees, the trees, they all just, well, yeah, maybe not the trees, but the animal kingdom takes this moment to reset itself. And the body kind of needs this often. Another form of resetting is the square breath. Now, the square breath, or box breathing, as other people might know it, is reminiscent of the way babies breathe, in the sense that they inhale, hold, exhale, hold. And so when we get that pattern back into the body, where we can inhale, pause, exhale, pause, we get that rhythm back in our respiratory system versus inhale, exhale. Already just thinking about it is enough for me to start getting excited, right? Now, every 90 minutes, we recommend this. every 90 minutes, because the body has ultradian rhythms and things that shift at that interval during the day. And we want to be able to do that to consistently check in with ourselves between the things that we do, between the times that we may spend with our, practitioners, our counselors, our therapists, our yoga classes, jujitsu classes, whatever it is that we're doing. The maintenance between there is in those 90-minute intervals with these exercises. Then we looked at how the eyes and the way that we use the eyes has an effect on how we communicate. So the way that we, examine an environment can affect how we speak. If we look rapidly, search rapidly, that can affect things, searching slowly, looking slowly. And then we looked at the ears, bringing them forward toward people to pay attention, bringing them away to sort of zoom out. And what does that do for how we pay attention to others and our surroundings? And then lastly, we looked at the yes, no, I don't know head condition, where we looked at, the micro suggestion or motor intention of yes, no, or I don't know, and how that affects how we communicate. So here's what we're going to do today. Today's exercise is going to be us recapping everything. But what I would like for everyone to do, especially over here in the chat, is we're gonna put this together in a way to examine how we actually listen. So most of the things that we talked about were about, well, this is how you might sound and this is what you might observe. But I want us to be transparent about how the way that we listen to the world is affected by these subtleties. So the very first thing I want to draw our attention to, besides these three things, because this is just, pure relaxation. Let's look at ocular movement. So everyone that's here with us today, if you were with us the entire time, some of this will be familiar to you. And if you weren't with us, it's okay. Don't worry about it. What I want you to do is I want you to dart your eyes across the room. Like, so I'll give it a second. So let me finish these instructions and then we'll do it. I want you to dart your eyes across the room, like, as if you're like really frantically looking for something, right? And on that signal, I'm going to just keep talking. And then afterwards, I want you to give me some insight about how it felt to pay attention to me. So in 3, 2, 1, go ahead, dart the room, just look around. And I'm talking, here we are, TRF Tuesday, talking about mind, body, speak, and how we use our body to make ourselves aware of ourselves, but also of others. And so you're, looking around, checking out the scenery, checking out the environment pretty rapidly. And yeah, so stop. Everyone hit the chat. What did it feel like to try to pay attention to me while frantically searching the room? Hit the chat so that we know that we're all in here together. Audrey says too much. Chris said irritating. Christine said, remove the glasses, totally distracted, super difficult, distracted. Gah! Jeffrey was like wondering what's wrong. Stressful. Mary, you were head of the class. I heard your voice, but I didn't understand your words. Shirley, maybe I wasn't doing it right. I had no issue. Shauna, like, hey, maybe it didn't bother you at all. It's okay. It was harder to keep the eyes going when you were talking. The eyes feel sore. Okay. You seemed distant, like I was trying to listen, but couldn't. Cameron says, I was not able to focus on what you were saying. Weird, icky. I mean, so we have these feelings, right? And this is just the instruction was just search around, look around frantically. And here it is. There's this interesting effect. Now do the same thing. So in 3, 2, we're going to slow down this time. Look around slowly. 3, 2, 1. Just examine the room gently, wherever you are. And I'm going to keep talking. So here we are, TRF Tuesday. And what we're talking about is how the voice affects how we communicate, or how people perceive us, how we perceive ourselves. And right now we're doing an exercise where we're just examining the room that we're in very slowly, gently, less frenetic than the last time. And we're trying to see what happens when we do that. So let's stop doing that and return to the chat. What did it feel this time to slowly just look around, but listen? Steenus is so much easier. Audrey assuring. Tammy said relaxed. Kathleen easier. Saw and heard more. Caroline said it felt gentle. Uh, hear the words much better. Actually heard you. Calmer. Better. Better. See things that remind me of friends. Much calmer. Okay. So now here's a couple of things to just bring into mind, right? Is that, it wasn't like, listen to me, don't listen to me, right? Like it wasn't about me, it was about how you were observing the world around you, right? And so when you were frenetically searching, it was very hard to hear what was being said, but in slowing down and searching a little bit more gently, you're able to pick up more. So it included me talking, and maybe some other things you might have observed in the room. And so this is, what we want to look at is the way that things go in is the way they go out. So it's a two-way street, right? The way that we listen and the way that we speak will usually mirror each other. So let's just say I start looking around really quickly in my space and I'm observing a few things. My voice follows. I can't help it. It's not like I have to try. It's just I'm putting my body in a state where, the priority to speak becomes a little less important. So the body's not going to give me as much, juice for that. And so it's going to, like, all right, what's up? Say some words and keep them all moving. We got to keep going. But if I'm looking around gently, if I'm calm with how I'm observing the environment, then my voice will follow, right? So that's one thing that we looked at. Now, let's take a look at the ears. So remember we talked about the ears, you can direct your attention directly in front of you, or you can kind of zoom out. So what we'll do is bring our attention and our awareness directly towards the camera, towards us, towards, this environment, and see what that feels like. 3, 2, 1. So right now, we're here at TRF Tuesday. We're practicing some observations about the body and the voice. And we're bringing our awareness directly to what's in front of us, our web cameras, the screen, whatever. And we're listening to see how that affects how we pick up the information. So everyone, you can come out, come away. Now hit the chat. What did that feel like? More centering, fully available, focused, easy to concentrate, mentally repeating many of the words, focused, focusing, very sleepy now. Apologies. Stimulating, could appreciate the layers of lived experience. That is very poetic, Stanley. Focused, able to receive the info. All right. Okay. More aligned. Other stressors kept at bay. Okay. Okay. So now again, instead of it being like, well, listen to me, right? Like, pay attention. It's like, okay, well, we all have our choices of what we orient ourselves towards. And in so making that decision, there was a difference in how things felt listening. Now, what we're going to do is zoom out. So what I want you to do is I want you to listen around you, right? So when you listen around you, take a moment and see what that feels like. So 3, 2, 1. We are now listening in sort of a surround sound. We're, paying attention to what's in front of us. Yeah, maybe, but we're also listening to the behind us, perhaps outside. Maybe there's someone talking in the next room, any of these kinds of things. And we want to see what happens when you're paying attention to these things, and how does that affect the listening of what's happening in front of you. And here we go. So with that orientation of attention, what changed for you? Let's go ahead and hit the chat. Tammy says, holy crap, you went down a well. Christine said, I wanted to close her. She wanted to close her eyes to concentrate more. Someone heard a clock. Someone was like annoying. Audrey said a lot going on, felt reserved. Okay, harder to follow your voice, but I did hear a lovely bird outside. Fair enough. Okay. Hard to hear. Okay, with the earrings, not really present, but still aware. Okay. So all of these things here, couldn't hear anything else clearly, right? Like, all right. So Stanley said, not much different. Now, everyone has different, what I would call thresholds for what they can pay attention to or multi-attend, if you will, right? The skill of being able to see like maybe like four small children and know where all four of them are, geolocate them, see them without looking at them, and know that they're climbing on something, right? You know, you have this sonic perception. But it seems like for others, okay, that there was a difference in awareness of me, but more awareness around them, right? So it's like, all right, cool. And you can tell these things when you're talking to somebody, when you can tell whether they're engaged or disengaged. You ever wonder, like, you can just kind of look and you just know that their attention is elsewhere. Even on the phone, you can hear it when people start talking because their voice will let you know that they've drifted away too because their attention is elsewhere, right? Now again, this wasn't pay attention to me, don't pay attention to me. This was pay attention to what you choose to pay attention to and how you choose to pay attention. And all of a sudden, what you capture is very different than what you just captured momentarily before. Now, this is very interesting because we all communicate within a context, right? So sometimes there is a need to be very aware of everything going on around you, right? Versus being aware of, the conversation that you're having, which speaks to why safety is very important when you have dialogue, because when you're in dialogue and you're really in dialogue, guess what disappears? Everything else around you. And it's really great, like when you're on a date, you can feel this way. If you have a moment with somebody that you care about, you feel this way. It's not so great when you're in an environment where that kind of attention could cost you with that awareness, right? Just like if you need to be wide aware, right? And that's what's important. You're out, you're exploring, maybe you're in a new environment you're not familiar with, maybe it's late at night and you just need to kind of pay attention. The last thing you want to do is be on your phone zoned out because you will miss things, right? So just knowing that our attention and our attentional resources are limited, then it affects the way we receive the environment around us. So I want us to, play around with what that feels like as we continue on after our time together. See what that does for you in other environments, in other spaces, places where you need to explore, be vibrant and alert, places where you need to be a bit more in tune and pay attention, utilizing your senses directly and deliberately. All right. All right. Now, yes, no, maybe. I don't know. So this is always fun. I know last time we did this, we looked around the room with each of these conditions. So what I'd like for you to do is in your mind's eye, just, nod the head yes. You don't have to physically do it. You can if you want to, but I'd recommend you just let the motor image guide you, right? And, if you do move your head, it'll be an extension of the thought versus you doing it and trying to catch up, right? So 3, 2, 1. We're nodding our heads in the affirmative while listening to what's happening, around us or in front. But what we're doing is we want to observe how we are now listening to what's happening, right? Seeing what that feels like here at TRF Tuesdays with everyone. And seeing hit the chat. Let me know, what that was like, right? What was it like to, be in that intention and listening to what's happening? Christine said emotional, easy, engaged. Mary says she feels an agreement. Jeffrey says, I can hear you more deeply and clearly. The intention of yes opens me up, Christina says. In tune. I didn't realize, Caroline said, I'm sorry, we just realized we started. Subtle sense of connection, motivated, feels good, less tension, engaged. I couldn't get, connect. I'm sure that there was a couple of letters in there that will come back later. The need for balance is highlighted. Oh, I couldn't get to connect. Okay, that's interesting. We'll talk about that in a second. So, and I want to highlight this, right? Because the assumption I'm sure everyone thought was, oh, if someone's like in the yes, it's like that must mean that I'm, with the other person. But yes is also, you're affirming whatever it is that you could be thinking about, right? So at the moment, at the time that I made the suggestion to do this exercise, Space Ghost could have been thinking about something. And well, yeah, okay, that thing. Now we might have a conversation with someone and they're nodding away. And you think it's with us. Like, oh, they must be talking about us. They're not even talking to us. No, they're nodding whatever they're thinking about. Right. And so if they're thinking about the connection with you and they're nodding, oh yeah, that's a yes, that's a good yes. But if they're nodding, they're thinking about, yeah, I'm definitely gonna go with that other contractor. Yeah, that's what's happening. And you're under the impression that this means something. It's like, let's not be so sure. It just only confirms what we are thinking about, right? Put your own mask on first. Now let's think about the no condition, right? So you just shaking your head no. And yeah, see what that feels like. 3, 2, 1. Remember, you're not physically doing it. You're just bringing the mental image of no, right, into the mind. And now we're listening at TRF Tuesdays, talking about how the voice and the body are one unit, how they're affected by each other. And let's see what happens when in the mind's eye there's a negation. How does that affect the information that's being processed? And let's see what happens. Um, all right. Jennifer said, I am already mentally disagreeing with you. Crystal says, withdrawn from the speaker. Christine, jaw felt tighter, blocked, tuning out information. Um, Christina says, I'm not disagreeing, but I'm physically drawn to back up. Tuned out, brought up fear, need to get away. Very interesting. These subtle things. Distrust. All right. Subtle things, subtle movements, just a thought. Wasn't sure where to put the negative energy, but felt a bunch of it. The same, but trying. Okay. There we go. Makes it uncomfortable and not constructive. I feel more space, probably because I say yes too much and end up exhausted. We're gonna look at that. And we talked about that last week. Say no. And the word no is just a word, but it's a full body no, right? And so I appreciate Ruby bringing that forward, right? About, you know, when we say yes too much, it's a body yes, yeah, cool, yeah, I agree, sure, yep, everything, yeah, I'll do that, I'll do this, I'll do that, yes, 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 yes. Woo, wait, done, tired, right? And so sometimes when people feel that, they're like that, no, they're like, whoa, whoa. I've had clients who brought that forward to me, something that may have happened, and where they're like, just the feeling of saying no with the body opens up this feeling, this sensation of like, yeah, I can say no, and that's okay. So other people had a sense of disengagement, distrust. No does not necessarily mean bad or negative. No is where you are. And so if your query is, do I trust or not trust what this person's saying, and you're in the no condition, then sure, the answer is no. And if that's the question you're asking yourself, you're like, but if the question is, do I feel resistance to this information, and you're in the no condition, then it's a matter of what's the question that you're asking yourself. And that's for another time, for another day, right? What are the questions that we ask ourselves? Questions are very powerful because they consume the mind, which is what makes it very difficult to field more than one at a time. You notice that we can take like a statement, like statement after statement after statement after statement, and another one and another one. But if people start piling on questions, Don't work like that. So, what would you like to do? Do you like this color? Do you like the color orange? Do you like ice cream? Have you ever been to the supermarket on a Saturday night and where the moon shines and the stars do a little thing with a triangle? Do you know what triangles are? See how like, whoa, but what is the question that we ask ourselves? And then what is the body doing when it answers it? And again, that's something for another day, another time. But right now we're looking at how we connect with the body on a subtle level and how that affects how we respond to the world. And so, let's look at the last one. Yeah, I don't know. So with I don't know, head tilts this side, this side. I don't know. So let's try that. 3, 2, 1. Here we are, TRF Tuesdays. I'm just doing a little head movement here and seeing about how that affects not only what we're saying, but also how we listen. What is it like, if we're examining these things, what is it like to pay attention, with that intention in mind? And, whenever you're ready, 3, 2, out, hit the chat. What was that like? What was it like? Head tilt, side to side. Like trying to figure it out. Audrey said, not centered, relaxed, tuned out altogether, confusion, interesting, distracted. I did this as a child, self-hypnotized, okay, more comfortable, interesting, giggling, curiosity, felt curious, curiosity, okay, disengaged from listening so I could figure out how I felt, wonder, weighing everything. The jury's still out. I attended every session, enjoyed it. And I attended every session, enjoyed it. Okay, for me. And okay, absolutely. Interesting. Apparently, you feel comfortable not knowing. It's pretty chill, less intentional. It's very interesting how these couldn't take you seriously. That's funny, right? So all of these little things, right? So um you have these subtleties in this movement here. And it's very interesting the varieties that come up. A lot was curiosity, some was distracting, wonder. When you observe something and you try to like figure it out, this is the universal head movement. I'm like, hmm, hmm, hmm. When you have that intention, depending on how, and someone said they felt more comfortable, right? Some people feel like it's funny, like, and it's because this is starts to get into like the subtleties of each of these movements has their own, there's tempos and other things that go along with that to change things. But for some people, like, of course, yeah, you feel silly, right? Or wondering, but just this head tilt is enough to shift how the information is being received. And by received, it's not just hitting the senses, but then received by the entire body system. Remember, we said at the very beginning that every heartbeat moves the head. Head is always kind of on a bobble swivel. And all of these subtleties of movement are reverberating through our entire system. Our entire fascial network is a wave. Things that we detect definitely are, they're like, what's the word? Blockages, and like fascia gets locked up, and that's what you go and you move for, because the body has to be able to do the wave. If you have places where it's locked up, the wave can't move through. But what you want to do is become mindful of these things together, right? This is what we spent our time doing for the past month. One, with resetting ourselves, resetting our breathing, and getting into a rhythm. Our life experiences and the things that we do, we get into a rhythm and a groove, walking, all these things, running, all these movements, the coordination of them is the body's adapting to the rhythm of life. Very musical to think about. However, there are rhythms that we operate in. The heartbeat's a rhythm, the breath rate is a rhythm. And by controlling these rhythms and getting a hold of them, we have a better opportunity to gather some semblance of self-control, but also being able to receive and connect with others the way we intend to, by, making ourselves available, but also knowing how to make ourselves unavailable if we need to. And so what I like for us to remember is that our senses are to be used to sense, but they're also to be used to send. And we want to be able to, take in information, but also send out our signals and send out the signals that we wish to. And what I'd like to do now, and again, to thank everyone for, to thank everyone for spending the time with me here with TRF Tuesdays. And in the event that you want to know more about what it is that I train or anything like that, you can reach me at mindbodyspeak.com, where you will get a prompting, because I will be releasing this book called Tonal Influence: How We Listen, How Others Hear Us, and What We Do to Set the Tone. And so you can reach out to me at mindbodyspeak.com. I have a mailing list and all other cool things, so you'll know when the pre-order is available. And yeah, if you just want to spend more time with us over here at Mind Body Speak, we'll be greatly happy to have you. And so this concludes our time with TRF Tuesdays. If we have time for questions, I'm open to taking any of them. And yeah, it's been a pleasure. Hear you soon.
Oh, Marshall, the pleasure's been ours.
Yeah.
This has been wonderful.
So I just want to kick it off by saying how great of a subject it is to talk about attention, because it seems like everything around us today, our phones, TV, everything is trying to get our attention, and how we're intentional with it and mindful about where we put it is very important. So I really appreciate, talking about that. Like Marshall said, we do have time to take a few questions if anyone wants to drop some in the chat. I'll kick off with a question of my own. What would you really give to somebody if they could distill this into like one takeaway? What's something they would want to take away from this 4-week session?
So if there was one thing, the mindful awareness of the hands, particularly with the box breathing, and I'll say this because hand-eye coordination is a thing that people like, oh, this is a skill to have. And there's many skills and many things that we take for granted that require powerful hand-eye coordination. Picking up a fork to put it to your mouth, right? Using your phone, writing, typing, and everything else above and beyond sports and things like that. But the mindfulness of bringing the synchronization to the hands and the breathing, the hands have 25% of the brain's motor strip. So 25% of the potential movements of the body, the brain devotes to the hands. And so when we do the breath and we synchronize and we bring our awareness to the hands, and we realize that there's so much potential in the connections between the hands and the eyes, specifically, like there's other research that shows that the eyes prioritize the field around the hands. Like no matter where you're looking, your eyes are pretty keen on where your hands are. And so bringing that awareness there to calm down, and again, bringing all of your senses to it. But if you had to say, okay, you know what, there's one thing, one object, the square breathing, coordinating with the hands and becoming mindful of that.
Yeah, it certainly did bring another level to it. Having that other element that, to me, felt like sort of like symbolized that feeling of breathing in and out, and made you more mindful of that. So
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too. I've done a lot of box breathing in the past, but not using the hands, and it definitely changes it.
We do have a question here from Ben. I was curious how this and attention and present in these body exercises relate to how people might interpret present moments and words and actions through the lens of past trauma or belief.
So, because I wouldn't venture to say like, this is my area where, I have the letters next to my name about these things, but I can speak to this from what I understand. So whenever we remember anything, whenever we think, we animate our thinking, meaning that we have a thought, the body attempts to make that thought come to life, to animate, right? When we remember, the visual system will follow the memory and look in the places that if an object was over here in your memory, your eyes will go there and go to that place. And so from my understanding, as far as his work is concerned, is that when we recall, and a lot of people do this work to bring down the emotional response to the recall to the point where you can remember that something happened, but you don't have the same bodily reaction that you did when it initially happened, that you're able to have a more relaxed, you're no longer like in it and shaking and tensing up and fighting or any of those things that the body would attempt to do. The best example I can give you of this was a film called Pacific Rim. It's by Guillermo del Toro, and it was a film about giant robots and monsters. But there's a scene in the film where the premise is that the world's overrun by these giant monsters, and humans have to be the brains of these giant robots to fight them. And they do this thing called drifting, where they connect one person to another and they have to create a neural connection to control this robot. It's a powerful metaphor for a lot of things, relationships, no matter what they are. But there was a scene where one of the young ladies was inside of the robot or the Jaeger, and she was having a memory of when one of the giant monsters destroyed her home city. And she's remembering this experience, and she's looking at the monster, and she's having a moment where she's afraid, and she lifts her hand up, but she's doing this in her memory. But what's happening in the lab is she's activating the photon weaponry of the robot in that moment, because she's that memory is triggering that older, larger body is now doing what it couldn't do when she was a small little girl. So now it's fighting. And what would happen if she fired that weapon? A lot of things would go wrong. And I find it to be a very brilliant metaphor for what happens when we don't get over certain things, is that we will have a recall of a memory and wind up fighting someone else because we're in that moment and the body's attempting to animate itself because we're in a trance. And so the embodiment, or anyone that does these things with embodied cognition or EMDR, any of these things, you're trying to reduce your body's willingness to animate in a way that's maladaptive. If you can get out of the moment and get past it, move it out of your system, then when you recall it, you're not going to that place. And then when you move on with other relationships, you're also not using maladaptive embodied responses to a moment. Hopefully that's the best way that I can explain that. And hopefully that makes sense to you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
I think we're about out of time. Is it okay if people email you with any additional questions they might have? Is that?
Yeah. So my so go to coach at MindBodySpeak, or if you go to mindbodyspeak.com, there's an email thing there. And so feel free to reach out for sure. And yeah. And also if you guys collect any questions at TRF, I would also be happy to, have like a, response, like newsletter type response, for the next month or so, specifically while this topic is top of mind. So
Oh, yeah. Thank
let me
you.
know.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Marshall, it's been really wonderful having you here and learning all of these things. We've all really enjoyed it. This is the last session with Marshall. And as we've said, you can find him at mindbodyspeak.com. There is a feedback form. Please feel free to give us some feedback. You can also ask a question there and someone may be able to get back to you. We offer this program for all of you, whether you're already in our community or new to TRF. We're happy to have you. You can find all the past sessions in the TRF Tuesday library under the resources tab. And behind the scenes, working hard are the TRF team members, Pat Murray, Star Muhammad, Connor McCann, Laura Walsh, and I'm Mary Frangie. And we look forward to seeing you all next week with a new presenter. Thanks, everyone. It's been
All
really
right, now.
wonderful.
Bye.